Boi. Come. Bashalan. In the peace. Atele. Putting crown on. Byler. Her husband. Boi Kailar. Come bride. This is a beautiful Hebrew wedding song, as if the angels in heaven are calling for the bride who has been waiting for 6,000 years to stand up bravely and put on the crown of glory for the coming King of Heaven.
Hello everyone, welcome to Enoch talking about the Heaven channel. The world is full of despair and sorrow, so only when we turn our eyes to the heaven, we can have hope and finally we can face the world. For those who believe in the heaven, this channel is to tell everyone that within 10 years, everything will end, and the best will come, so it is said that Enoch is showing everyone the way to go back to the heaven. For those who do not believe in the heaven, this is the precipitation after decades of exploration. It is a complete story of biblical characters and stories. They are connected and related, so they can be listened to as stories and storytelling. The first story we opened the channel was the story of Jacob, the most important one in the Bible and the one most valued in the heaven. It can be said that when people know Jacob, they know what to do, and eventually they will return to the God. Someone will say, isn't Jesus the most important one? Knowing Jesus can also enter the heaven. My answer, don't worry, you will understand when you listen to the stories of Enoch talking about the heaven for a few months. Now I can only explain this in one sentence, that is, Jesus is like a standard ruler, but Jacob is the model example of how to use a standard ruler and eventually send himself into the heaven, so the standard ruler is very important, but how to use it is more important. Okay, let's get started. When it comes to Jacob, we must talk about his birth first. Every detail that God has let us know is very important. In the next 10 years, especially the last 3.5 years, no detail can be wasted, because it can directly determine in the life or death for everyone. When Moses was in anger at that time, ignoring the details of God's command, and ultimately violated God's will and was not allowed to enter the promised land. Jacob's child of Isaac and Rebekah, when Rebekah married 40-year-old Isaac at the age of 13. 20 years passed, but there was no movement in her belly. Finally, the couple prayed to God, and Rebekah became pregnant. During the pregnancy, the reaction during pregnancy was particularly severe. It was not until after the birth of the children that she was confirmed that it was twins, and one was the hyperactive, red-haired eldest son Esau, and the other was the smooth-skinned and tender young brother Jacob. Do you think the mother can bear this kind of twin in the womb? One with rough-skinned, hair-covered, like to squeeze around and move frequently, and his hairs rubbed against Jacob's tender skin, and it is constantly sting, so one squeezed and sting, and the other try to avoid, which made the mother suffer greatly. Have you got the picture? If she had been a normal mother, she would have just lied at home and accepted her fate, but she happened to be Rebekah, who liked inaction immediately and dared to think and act. In the future, we will tell the story of their husband and wife. Regarding the personality of Rebekah, we will not talk now, but will do so in future stories. This Rebekah just wanted to know why she had such a big reaction. When she was 7 to 8 months in pregnancy, furthermore, she had a twin, and even further, one hairy skin and another tender skin. Of course, Rebekah didn't know this at that time. She was wondering why she suffered so much. In the end, she actually walked by herself for 3 days, and climbed up the mountain for one more day, and finally she arrived at the place where Abraham sacrificed Isaac, which is today's Temple Mount and the location of the Golden Dome Temple. To pray to God, she wanted to know why. You must know that the road back then was so rough, tough, and difficult. Back then, Abraham and Isaac, plus 2 servants 4 big men, rode on donkeys, walked for 3 days, and climbed the mountain for another day. So we really don't know how Rebecca, a pregnant woman with twins, was in 7 or 8 months pregnancy. How did she travel all the way to finish the whole journey? Even modern society with even road, no one will allow a late-stage pregnant woman to walk that distance. Undouble, it was due to Rebecca's determination and strong will. We will discuss later that she was the only one in the Torah, that is, in the Jewish Torah, the only one God described as a virgin, which means that God specially made for Isaac, only for Isaac. Only a woman who has never met other men in all previous reincarnations can be called virgin in God's eyes. We must know that God is eternal and transcends in time. Therefore, if she had married a man other than her husband in 6,000 years of reincarnation, this woman will not be called a virgin by God. All in all, Rebecca was really God's tailor-made wife for Isaac, so you don't be surprised that she was so determined and persevered. But even so, God didn't tell Rebecca directly what was in her womb, even after she was praying on the top of the mountain. But when Rebecca returned home, God passed the identical message to Rebecca through 2 channels, Abraham and Noah's house. This is recorded in the scriptures. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. Genesis 25 verse 23 NKJV. However, there is a problem with this translation. The big or elder in the original text actually also means many, strong and more blessed, rather than just referring to the eldest son and early birth, because if it had taken only meaning of early birth, the later according to the arrangement of the heaven, this word will make God half a lie here. Only when we take the meaning of many, strong, more blessed, it fits to God's true meaning. Keep in mind, in the heaven, in God's place, Jacob is the earlier created one. Let's take a moment to think about it. Abraham and Adam, who was the eldest and who was the second? According to the flesh, Adam came into this world first, so he was the big brother. But the first sentence of the Hebrew Bible tells us that at the beginning of time, God created Abraham. In the first and second words, God called Abram twice, so Abraham is what in the first book of Enoch. Enoch called him the one as head of days, the first created when this universe began. These will be expanded and filled in detail in later stories. Now you just listen this story first and leave a question mark in your notebook. This is also what Paul said. In the beginning, before the earth was formed, God has already created our spirits and placed them in the heaven, our eternal home. Abraham, according to God's commandment, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. So he chose to let Adam come to this earth first. In fact, Adam belongs to the earth, but Abraham belongs to the heaven. At that time, the heaven and the earth connected at the Garden of Eden. The heaven protected the earth, just like 2 big balls. The heaven surrounded the earth, protected the earth. We will give the details when we talk about the story of Noah. Now we just need to know that the Garden of Eden can be counted as both the heaven and the earth, because it is the shared area. God let Adam and his wife take care of the Garden of Eden, and then went to create Abraham, Adam's brother, who belonged to the heaven. Some rabbis stated that Adam and his wife ate the forbidden fruit a few hours earlier. The forbidden fruit is fig fruits. This fruit has a characteristic, that is, even if it was picked earlier and eaten before it was ripe, the fruit is bitter, and it must be picked and eaten until it is fully ripe. Then we have sweet fruits. At that time, God forbid Adam and his wife to eat because God wanted to create Abraham. When the creation was completed, they were brought before Adam and his wife. The 2 brothers worked together, and finally the heaven and the earth were tied together, and the work of God was completed, and then the fruit would be sweet. But just when God had completed the creation of the heavenly Abraham, just a few hours before the completion, something happened to Adam and his wife. The Holy Spirit went out like the wind to call God the Father back to deal with the matter. This event changed God's original plan from then on. God the Father immediately started the restoration work of Adam's family, which has been lasted all these 6,000 years. The timeline position we are in now is the last 10 years of the final stage of God's restoration work. It's all God's work, and what you hear Enoch talk about is the preparation for the year before the test work begins. So, God sees Adam as red, because the soil is red. We can look at the spelling of the Hebrew word Adam, and the spelling of the Hebrew word red, which are almost the same as the pronunciation, just pull the middle letter, longer, that extra, is a sign of elongated pronunciation. That's why the Israelis have a blue flag and they know they're going to go back to the heaven eventually. Red and blue intertwined is purple, the color of the kings, that is, the exclusive color of all those who pass the test for the next millennium. So, starting from Cain and Abel, God has been doing repair work, but it had failed again and again because of killing and hatred. God has known for a long time that the ultimate restoration success will be after the Great Tribulation, when the house of David and the house of Joseph become one, and it will then be done. David represented blue, and Joseph willingly became the son-in-law of the family of Adam, that is, the son-in-law of the family of Shechem, and was finally buried in Shechem. It is also why when Jacob blessed Joseph, he told us that Joseph should be found outside the Israel's wall, since he was counted as a member of Adam's family, but in fact he has been Adam's family, as we will show why in future stories. When the end comes, Enoch, Elijah, and Joseph of Adam's house will rise up, and finally hand over the scepter of power from Jacob to the team of Moses, Aaron, and David. Only then we will do like what Moses led everyone out of Egypt, but this time his true event in the last 3.5 years, while last time Moses did in 40 years as projection of this real event. Yes, again, this is the last time, also the true entity, and the exodus of the last time led by Moses was just a rehearsal for the entity of this true exodus from the sin completely. You see, Moses started to lead Israelis at the age of 80, and Jacob married 2 wives at the age of 84. Both reflects the true exodus event, which corresponds to the 84th year of the re-established Israel as a nation, that is, in 2031, the only Son of God, Jesus, will marry 2 wives, all of the true Israelites, blue, plus small amount of prodigal sons of Adam's family, that is, they are represented by red color. So, the apocalypse will start around 2028, and Moses will manifest in 2027 to 2028, which is 80 years of re-establish of the kingdom of Israel. And furthermore, the team from the Adams family will start operations in 2021, because Moses' sister, Miriam, is 6 years earlier than Moses. In the Exodus, it was this little prophet who finally announced the coming of Aaron and Moses. You can see that God's arrangement is accurate in every fine detail, and nothing can be messed up. Even the name Abel, the Hebrew word means heir, because Abel is from the heaven family, Abraham family, and his brother Cain is earthly, from the Adam family. When Cain killed Abel, God's restoration work on them failed again. Everyone, please don't make the mistake of thinking that God is not omnipotent because of Adam's failure and Cain's failure. In fact, if you go to see God's restoration work in nature, for X-maple C woman's belly, cesarean section can be performed again and again, the belly never gives in. The failures of these people are to educate us, and the final repaired and restored one is far stronger than the original. Going back to Rebekah, now we understand why it is said that the 2 countries are in her belly, and the strong must serve the weak. In the heaven Jacob was the firstborn, but when he was on earth and he gave the firstborn right to Esau. For the rest of this arrangement, you won't know why until you understand God's plan in the end. Let's leave them to later stories. Back at Rebekah, can you understand that her belly is a symbol of the Ark of Doom? There are two groups in it, one belongs to this world, which is Esau, and the other belongs to the one who will eventually return to the heaven, which is Jacob. In the belly, Jacob had to endure Esau's torment, and he had to endure until the end to succeed, and he had to do everything Jesus said. But even so, you have to rely on the group to win, rather than a personal hero. Even the last Exodus was arranged in this way. Moses started to lead Israel at the age of 80 and spent 40 years in the wilderness, corresponding to the Great Tribulation, that Moses will appear in the 80th anniversary of the Kingdom of Israel, and start to lead us out of Egypt in 4 years. You can perceive that he will do so by grabbing the heels of Adam's family, the most inconspicuous group of Adam's family, that is, true Jacob within Enoch's team, and everyone will succeed at the end of the tribulation. And in the last Exodus, the first group of more than 600,000 Israelites who followed Moses all died in the wilderness, except for the 2 persons. This group will show the end of Esau of Adam's family. And the next generation afterwards, again more than 600,000 Israelites will be the true Jacob. Today, who has more blessings and more people, Israelites have around 20 millions and Adam family has more than 7 billions. It becomes very obvious who will serve who, and how to serve them. You see, God arranged what was in Rebekah's womb in spiritual aspect, which is exactly what will happen in the doomsday. The young brother, Adam family will come out the womb first, then Jacob will grab his brother's ankle to avoid the tragedy of being stillborn in the womb. This is also extremely accurate in terms of time. Esau jumped out of his mother's womb impatiently, and finally fell into the great darkness before dawn, and finally died. And his heel, just a little bit of his body, represented by a small group of Adam's repented prodigal sons, will be just right on time. They will see the dawn, and also because of Jacob's blessing, Jacob will capture Adam's house by grabbing them. This is exactly what the Israelites will do, grabbing Adam family, not all, but enough, like a sheaf in the hands of the Israelites, and will be taken back to the heaven. Well, we'll stop here today. In the next part of story we will talk about the truth of the name is earth-shattering shocks. And Esau was afraid of pain to refuse circumcision. Esau killed King Nimrod with all his might power. And Jacob got firstborn right from Esau with red bean soup. Thank you for listening to the Enoch Talk Show. See you next time.